EastEnders has been part of British life for nearly 40 years. It's given us breakups, bust-ups, and those iconic doof-doof cliffhangers that stop the nation in its tracks. But what happens off-screen is often wilder than anything written into the script. From scrapped storylines and bizarre casting twists to real-life scandals and production secrets, EastEnders hides a side that fans rarely get to see. These are 15 strange and surprising facts that will change the way you look at Albert Square forever. The first thing to know about EastEnders is that its most famous location isn't even real. Walford might sound like a genuine East London borough, but the name is a mashup of Walthamstow and Stratford. The writers wanted a setting that captured the grit and community spirit of the East End without being pinned down to one actual postcode. Albert Square, which is the heart of Walford, was inspired by Facet Square in Hackney. The real-life square is a quiet Victorian terrace where nothing remotely soap-worthy tends to happen. Unless you count Mrs. Jenkins arguing with her cat, which sadly never made it to the BBC. But for EastEnders fans, it's hallowed ground. Tourists still visit, snapping photos of ordinary houses that once inspired the most dramatic square on television. The residents of Facet Square were so wary of having their peace disturbed that the BBC had to build an entire replica in Elstree Studios, which means that the Albert Square you see on screen is a carefully constructed fake down to every brick and lamppost. Few sounds are as instantly recognisable in British TV as the EastEnders Douf Douf. The weird part is that it almost didn't exist. The original drafts of the theme tune had no dramatic ending. It was only when the producers realised they needed a clear punctuation mark for their endless cliffhangers that the drum beats were added. The composer, Simon May, worked with percussionist Graham Jarvis to create the now iconic sting. And those 4 seconds of drums have been played more than 100,000 times since the show began. That's more drum time than most actual drummers get in their careers. For millions of viewers, that sound triggers the same reflex as a cliffhanger in a thriller. Doof, doof, and everyone's glued to the screen. No building in Albert Square has seen more drama than the Queen Victoria pub. Fires, fights, breakups, reunions. The Vic has been through it all. But did you know it has had more than 15 landlords and landladies since the show began? It started with Den and Angie Watts, who ran the Vic during the iconic early years. Since then, names like Peggy Mitchell, Alfie Moon and Mick Carter have all taken over the pumps. At this point, the pubs had more landlords than a London flat share. Each owner brought a new era of EastEnders history, turning the Vic into a character in its own right. And the Vic has been rebuilt twice on screen following devastating fires. In true soap fashion, both rebuilds allowed the set designers to refresh the pub while staying faithful to its iconic look. The pub may change hands, but it always remains the beating heart of Walford. Not every classic EastEnders moment was the result of weeks of careful planning. One famous scene is the kitchen showdown between Cat Slater and Zoe in 2001, featuring the now legendary line, "You ain't my mother."
Because I said so, alright? And I have to do everything you say, do I? No, you can't tell me what to do, you ain't my mother!
Was reportedly sketched out quickly on a pub napkin during a late-night brainstorming session. So yes, one of TV's most iconic lines started life next to a pint of lager and a packet of crisps. Writers sometimes used whatever was at hand to capture the rawness of Walford's drama. And just like that, a hastily scribbled idea became one of the show's most quoted lines, still parodied on TV today. It is proof that genius can arrive when you least expect it. When EastEnders was first pitched, some BBC executives worried it was too bleak. Unlike other soaps of the time, EastEnders showed poverty, crime and family struggles in a brutally realistic way. One early review even called it too depressing for prime time. But when the first episode aired in February 1985, viewers loved it. Within weeks, the show was drawing more than 20 million viewers per episode. So bleak? Yes, but also binge-worthy. Before binge-watching was even a thing, what critics saw as too gritty turned out to be exactly what audiences wanted. It was a true reflection of real life rather than an idealised version of it. If you've ever watched a tense scene unfold in the Queen Vic, you've probably noticed the endless glasses of beer being poured. But the truth is, the cast aren't drinking real alcohol. The lager is actually a shandy made from watered-down shandy mix or flat apple juice. Whiskey is usually cold tea. Even champagne is often apple cider with the fizz left to fade. So if the actors look tipsy, it's from exhaustion, not the booze. It's a practical choice because otherwise the actors would never make it through multiple takes without wobbling. EastEnders is notorious for its dramatic deaths. Since its debut, more than 150 characters have died on screen. Some went out in shocking murders, others in tragic accidents. That works out to nearly 4 character deaths a year. Basically, Walford's so deadly it should come with its own health warning. Memorable moments include the infamous Who Killed Lucy Beale storyline, which gripped the nation for months before the shocking reveal. Then there was Tiffany Mitchell's tragic death on New Year's Eve 1998, watched by over 12 million viewers. The mortality rate in Walford might be grim, but it keeps audiences hooked. Christmas Day 1986. Den Watts handed Angie divorce papers in front of 30 million viewers. It became the most watched episode in UK soap history. To put it in perspective, that's more than half the population of Britain at the time, all watching the same moment together. Forget Netflix drops, because this was peak Don't Answer the Phone. It's on TV. Even the Queen's Christmas speech couldn't compete. The scene cemented EastEnders as the crown jewel of British soaps, proving that nothing beats the mix of drama and betrayal. Not every EastEnders legend was human. Wellard, the loyal German shepherd owned by Robbie Jackson, became one of the show's most beloved characters. Fans wrote letters addressed to Wellard, children drew pictures of him, and even adults admitted tuning in just to see what he was up to. When your dog gets more fan mail than you know you're in trouble. His death episode in 2008 was one of the most heartbreaking in soap history. For many, Wellard was a true Walford resident. Sharon and Grant Mitchell's 1991 wedding episode was so popular, it virtually shut down parts of the country. Pubs reported empty bars as customers rushed home, and some streets were eerily quiet while the episode aired. This TV wedding was a national event. Move over, royal weddings. Walford had its own. Sharon's dress, Grant's suit, and even the flowers were copied by real-life couples in the weeks that followed. Here's a behind-the-scenes oddity. The original EastEnders outdoor set at Elstree Studios wasn't aligned properly with the sun. That meant filming constantly ran into problems with harsh shadows and uneven lighting. To solve this problem, the entire set was dismantled and rotated 90 degrees in the early 1990s. The rebuild cost millions, but made filming much easier. That's probably the most expensive, just move it a bit, in TV history. So when you see a perfectly lit showdown in Albert Square, remember, it took a whole engineering project to make it possible. EastEnders is famous for its dramatic exits, but the reality is not every character got one. Some simply vanished. Fans still scratch their heads about forgotten residents who one day walked into the Queen Vic and were never seen again. Among the strangest cases are Joanne Francis, a manager of the Vic who disappeared mid-storyline, and characters like Stephen Beale, who have died and returned in new forms more than once. It's the only place where ghosting someone can literally mean you've left the show. It's one of the quirks of soap life. Sometimes people just disappear. In 1987, EastEnders made television history by showing the first interracial kiss in a British soap. The moment sparked both praise and controversy at the time, but it pushed boundaries and helped change the way relationships were portrayed on mainstream TV. And it wasn't just a kiss. It was the moment Walford discovered it could cause more headlines than a royal wedding. For a show often accused of being too gritty, it proved that EastEnders was also quietly groundbreaking. Few lines in TV history are as quotable as Peggy Mitchell's furious "Get out of my pub." But originally, this line wasn't even in the written script. Barbara Windsor reportedly delivered the line spontaneously during rehearsal when she felt Peggy needed something sharper to throw her enemies out of the Vic. The writers loved it so much that it became Peggy's signature catchphrase and was shouted countless times over the years. Basically, she invented the soap version of "Bye Felicia." Even today, EastEnders fans still repeat it with a smile. EastEnders might be a British institution, but it has fans all over the world. From New Zealand to South Africa, the show has been broadcast internationally, sometimes years behind UK airings. In countries where it wasn't shown, fans used to swap bootleg VHS tapes just to stay updated on the latest Walford gossip. Imagine explaining to customs why you're smuggling EastEnders episodes across borders. Streaming has made it easier than ever, but for many fans abroad, EastEnders is a link to home and a sense of community. At the end of the day, EastEnders is a vital part of British culture. Decades later, it still surprises us with the strange stories that happen both on and off screen. If you love these weird facts about EastEnders, hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss another dive into TV's hidden stories. Until next time, see you at the Vic.